Python because you've learned all these things. But believe me when I say this, you still know absolutely nothing. And you realize this once you figure out a project to build. You open up your blank VS Code file and you realize that you have absolutely no idea where to get started. So what you then do is you start Googling things. Every problem that comes to your mind, you just Google it. You start figuring things out on your own, and then you remember like, oh yeah, this was that thing that I learned in that course. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. But it's only once you start to figure things out on your own that your brains actually learn how to use them. That is how our brains work. And this concept of putting things into practice is so fundamentally important that I made this whole other video about it. Got over 200,000 views. I'm really proud of this video. It's really good actually. So if you want to even dream about actually learning to code, you absolutely must watch this video next, because otherwise none of these other things even matter.
You cannot imagine how liberated I feel, no longer being defined by my stuttering.
Great.
Before, stuttering was something that used to happen to me.
Fight.
Now it is me who is in control. I began stuttering as a child. It affected almost all aspects of my life. It was only when I realized that with the right tools, with the right training, stuttering is something that I could control. That gave me confidence and my whole life changed for the better.
When I met Negan, I didn't know he stuttered. Now I had a real example in front of me. Instead of stuttering controlling me, I can control my stutter. Straight away we realized we need to code this into an app, and then maybe we can help other people as well.
Particular model. There is no cure for stuttering. You can only learn to manage it.
Fight.
And the app does exactly that. I have a profound lesson to teach. You can think of speech therapy as like going to a gym. As long as you keep working out, you can maintain the gains eventually. Stuttering manifests itself differently in each individual. You would get stuck on particular sounds, on particular letters. In my case, it was particularly the P sound. So I would avoid any word that would start with the letter P. And paneer happens to be one of my favorite dishes. So whenever I used to go out, I would always order something that was easier to say. Now, with the right training, whenever I go out, I'm ordering paneer for myself.
Access to speech therapy is a global problem, but it's particularly acute in the developing countries. In India, there are 4,000 licensed speech therapists and over 60 million people with a speech disorder.
Please tell everyone where you are from.
This is why we had to go on Google Play to reach and help people everywhere.
I am working in a
Final round.
Stamina has been really successful on Google Play. So far, we have received over 200,000 downloads from over 155 countries, so we know it's working.
When I look back, I cannot believe I have grown up from being a shy, introverted person who would avoid situations that involved speaking, to being somebody who is confidently giving you this interview. And it is my aim to give this experience to other people who study, so they could live much more fulfilling lives.
video, we're going to be learning the basics of the Python programming language, as well as how to think like a programmer, specifically using the Python language. The purpose of this video is to teach you the basics of Python so that you can get started with the language and sort of understand how the language works at a higher level, as well as the basic building blocks and concepts of Python. And we're actually going to be coding a basic program using these basic building blocks to show you just how much you can actually get done just with the basics. And lastly, at the end, I will direct you to the courses and resources that I recommend for you to keep going with Python if you decide that this is a language that you want to master. There will be both free options and the paid options if you're willing to invest a bit of money into your learning. But before all that, let's briefly discuss why Python is such a great language for you to get started learning to code. Firstly, it's the applications. Python has sort of emerged as one of the most popular languages in the industry, and there's a humongous amount of demand for Python developers at the moment. But whether Python is for you will actually depend on what sort of programming you're most interested in. I know I've said before that the best language for beginning to learning to code is actually JavaScript, and that still applies for a lot of people. And the reason for that is that JavaScript is best for web development, but for a lot of other things, like for example data science, artificial intelligence, are super in right now. And personally for me, these areas are what interests me the most actually. So because Python is the most popular language in these applications, has actually pushed myself to switch from focusing on JavaScript to actually focusing on Python. The second reason is the syntax. Python is an extremely user-friendly language. The syntax is extremely easy and it's really easy to understand, and because of that, very easy to learn as well. And the third reason are all the libraries and the support that exists for Python. Essentially, anything that you can probably think about doing in a programming language, there's probably a library that someone else has written that you can essentially just import, use the functions and objects that someone else has already made so that you don't have to do everything from scratch. There's just so much potential with Python and you can do so many cool things with it. That's why I've started using Python in a lot of my personal programs that I'm writing for myself, like a lot of my automation projects, like in this video right here. But yeah, you can just do so much with Python. That's why it's such an exciting language to start with. And obviously, lastly, as I sort of touched on already, the job demand. Python is one of the most in-demand languages in the world. So probably for a lot of people, the thing you care about the most is getting your first job. So if you know Python, there you go. It's one of the best languages for that because so many companies need Python skills. So now, as promised, let's get into the tutorial part of this video where I teach you the basics of Python so that you can get started with this wonderful language. I believe that the best way to learn is by actually applying concepts immediately to something tangible and fun. So if you follow along and build this program with me, I guarantee you'll learn a lot. Now, normally code is written in something called a code text editor, or just IDE, which is basically just like Microsoft Word except for coding. Normally you have to install all these text editors in this program, and you have to install Python on your computer as well for you even to be able to run it. But for what we'll be doing in this video, you don't have to do any of that, because actually what we'll be writing our code in is this browser-based IDE called Replit. We're also very kindly sponsoring this video. Replit is a popular free online platform that allows you to start coding without having to set up anything, and they provide a social browser